Welcome to ArtCraft Electronics. Today's video is going to be on DMR, Digital Mobile Radio, what it is, and how that relates to building a code plug for the AnyTone AT D868UV. I'm Art, W0BA, and this has been an interesting topic. Many people have asked for my assistance in programming their radio, and I think much of it is because there's a lack of understanding of what drives the individual elements of a code plug. So let's see if this particular video can help a little bit. DMR for amateur radio is digital voice and data communications mode. Going for a comparison right now, traditional FM usually occupies 25 kilohertz, and as you get farther away from the receiver, your signal degrades due to increasing levels of noise until you're out of range of the receiver. DMR is clear and noise-free under the same conditions until you're out of range of the receiver, when your signal would just not be there, except for a short period where your voice would be broken and distorted. We call that the R2D2 syndrome. If you get into DMR for any length of time, you'll hear it. Let's take a look at the 25 kilohertz channel for FM and DMR. DMR has an immediate 2-to-1 advantage in occupied channel space. Two conversations can be conducted simultaneously in a single 25 kilohertz channel. So, FM, 1 channel, 1 repeater. DMR, 2 channels, 1 repeater. 2 time slots. DMR is either 100% copy or no copy with little signal degradation with distance until it is gone completely. And it occupies half as much channel bandwidth per communication as regular FM. This relates to the code plug programming. Let's get the code plug programming going here. This just takes a minute. Now I have a big code plug loaded already in my program, or at least I was working on one when I put the program away last time. So this will take a few seconds for the program to boot up. We'll get there in just a moment. I was inputting the latest data dump, and that data dump is well over 91,000 contacts. So that's that takes some time to load. So when you open the CPS, that's Customer Programming Software, in Motorola, you see the channel selection list. When you receive your 868, you're likely to not have any of these in yours unless you purchase it from ArtCraft Electronics. Shameless pun, not pun, but shameless little commercial thrown in the middle of a presentation. Sorry about that. Anyway, you're going to come up with the channel list. You're going to need the frequency. Let's open up one of these just for grins and see how we built it. I think that will be more valuable. Let's see. Oh yeah. Well, thank you, David, in advance for allowing us to use your code plug for this video. We see right here a channel template, a pop-up. We were in channels, we double-clicked on one of the channel numbers, and open it came. You might do that and have a default display right in front of you right now, but this happens to be one I already programmed. Fear not, we're going to know why each one of these entries was entered, and we'll be good to go. As far as the channel name goes, you have to pretty much know what you're going to put into your channel. And the reason I chose this channel name is the K1RK is the repeater that is hosting this channel, and the Worldwide English is the name of the channel on the network that you're using. I'm using a DMR-MARC template, if you will, right now, but the same would work with a Brandmeister. If it was a Brandmeister hosted repeater, you would still have the name of the repeater right here, and then WW English. So that's the reasoning on the channel name. Sometimes I use things like FOCO NOCO for Fort Collins, Northern Colorado, and that helps out a lot because it's all a description and it doesn't contain the name of the repeater at all. However, I have several repeaters throughout Northern Colorado that I use, and sometimes you can have radios that will roam, and they'll just find the repeater that is on that one. I've not used that function. In fact, I don't know that the 868 has that function and that capability. I just said that so we would be able to understand that it exists. Okay, that repeater has a receive frequency. Okay, that you'll find in the repeater guide. And it's got 145.2, and often a space away is a negative sign, meaning it's negative for its input frequency. So where it transmits, where the repeater transmits, is up here, our receive frequency for the mobile radio that we have, and therefore 600 kilohertz down from that is 144.600. Y'all are probably pretty familiar with that already. We've decided we're going to build a digital channel. We could have built an analog channel. We could have built a digital channel. And there's some combinations. I don't want to get into them right now, mostly because I don't use them very much, but they're combinations of digital and analog channels and really confuse me, so I don't think I'm going to go there. I mentioned time slots, that there were 2 time slots. The time slots split up a channel. Remember, a 25 kilohertz channel is used for FM, and we split that in half, and we can have 2 simultaneous conversations in that 25 kilohertz if we use DMR, and that is named time slot 1 and time slot 2. So I just wanted to make that point right now, and we'll go there. You know, if you have this software, you could break it open and play along. If you don't have it yet, no big deal. You can get it later on and this video will be around for a while, so don't worry about that. This is mostly a stream of thought video, so hang in there. If it's a little halting or out of order, just hang in there. It's intended to present DMR from a perspective of, here's the entry we have to make in the while we're building the channel, the elements of the channel, and here's the background behind it. Not going back to Etsy or anything like that. Just here's the background behind it. So another thing that comes to mind right now is save your code plug often. If I could verbally underline that, I would. Save your code plug often. Use a unique file name so you can go back if you have a problem with your current code plug and you need to go back to the previous code plug and start over again without having to rebuild your entire code plug. Use a unique file name and save often. I use a date-time group. For instance, right now, you can see in the lower right-hand corner the date and the time. So right now, my channel name or my file name would be 0413180621. Good news there is you don't have to remember anything, and it just comes up and you're quite aware of what the vintage is of the file name that you're looking at. So that works very well. Next item to consider, we've already gone over the digital versus analog or DMR versus FM selection. We come to the transmit power. I'm not going to preach at you about good amateur practice, but I typically use low because on the radio itself, I program a button that can change output power on the fly without having to do much in the way of reprogramming. The red button on top. So I push it once and it goes to medium, and the next one it goes to high, and the next one it goes to turbo. I wish they hadn't done that. I wish they just had 1, 2, 3, 4 in terms of power. But because turbo audio kind of obfuscates the situation, it kind of mixes and matches audio with the actual type of modulation and so on. Nonetheless, that's what it is, and I usually use low. Okay, we assumed we're going to make a digital channel. Our transmit output power is going to be low. Because it's a DMR channel, we're going to select 12.5 kilohertz. This channel is going to live on a time slot, in this case slot 1. It's going to live in half a 25 kilohertz channel allocation. Okay. This one is a little bit more, I don't know if it's confusing, it just requires some illumination. Transmit permit. If you are normally a courteous operator, and most of us get to be after some time, we wait, we drag our feet a little bit, let someone who wants to transmit during a conversation, someone that wants to break in and say, hey, we allow them time to do so. So if we're we're feeling like we're pretty good at that, we're courteous operators, we might put in always because we don't need the machine telling us what to do. Other times, we might want to give the illusion that we are courteous operators and have that enforced by the radio. So, if you're someone like me who's hung around a little bit and rarely gets excited during the course of a conversation, you can put transmit permit at always. That means anytime you push the push to talk button, you're going to transmit if your other credentials, your other programming elements are correct. You can program over the top of people that way, and generally that's not considered too good. Let's go to the next selection and talk about that a minute. Channel free. Channel free means that your conversation partner has dropped their transmission, but also the hang time of the repeater has dropped. So that is usually inordinately long, a greater space than conversation would normally require. It's huge, I think. But if you have a round table going, you have lots of people talking, and the probability of people breaking in is high, then you might want to use that. I don't, but you might. Different color code. Why does different color code exist? We know that your conversation partner's transmission contains a color code. Color code's kind of like a PL for digital. Anyway, it's got a color code that they send and is transmitted through the repeater, so you hear it. Okay, that's happening. However, some repeaters are set up that when the participant in conversation drops their carrier, they go to a different color code transmitted from the repeater. And your radio senses that different color code is existing and allows you to transmit. Your radio is programmed to allow you to transmit when that occurs. And that's kind of cool. It really works well, because you can, if you go to same color code, that's just if your repeater doesn't change the color code. But the point of different color code and same color code in that context is your conversation partner has dropped their transmission, and there's a brief period where the repeater is getting ready to receive your transmission. When, if you push the push to talk in that brief period, if you were a little too quick on the key, you would get denied access to the repeater. It isn't long, but having these different color code and same color code capabilities would prevent you from trying to access the repeater during those periods, that brief period. I tend to use color code, and I use different color code for the most part, because the repeaters I use are set up that way. Sometimes I have to admit I use always, and that's a good thing. It's just what I do. Let's see, I think I covered that transmit permit pretty well. Let's go to the scan list. Let me tell you about the scan list. Scan list is a group of channels you have selected that you can use your repeater as a scanner, literally. That's too easy. The scan list is one of those things where you might have even different services on your scan list, and you could just scan through and listen to them. I don't use the radio that way, so I don't use scan lists. So I have none. In fact, I haven't built any. So that's how we use the radio as a scanner, and that's why I don't use it. You can also use this radio as a regular FM, entertainment FM radio. I don't use that either very much. Suppose I might if I was in the woods or something like that, and I needed to have some information from traditional broadcasting, but I don't use it. Okay, this is probably a good time to make sure that transmit, prohibit, work alone, talk around, simplex, TDMA, TDMA adaptive, and call confirmation are all unchecked. Make them go away. You don't need them for our normal day-to-day amateur radio communications. And then we come over to the contact. Yeah, contacts are interesting. You know why they're interesting? Because if we don't have contacts built right now, we have nothing to click on and put in the contact lists. Well, what's a guy to do? Well, what you do is you close this channel that you're working on, and you go over to the digital side, and you're going to see something like talk groups. Over here on digital, 2 down from digital, you see talk groups. And right now we're programming a DMR worldwide English. So that being said, this could be blank. There could be just a channel in here that doesn't relate to anything. So we know that now. Well, we're building a DMR-MARC worldwide English contact. So we put in DMR-MARC WWENG. Abbreviations are necessary because we don't have an infinite amount of characters in contact names. And because these are talk groups used during the accessing of the repeater and the selection of where we're going on that repeater in terms of the talk groups available worldwide, we select it, but it's going to be group call. Let's talk about the types of calls for a moment. Private call would be used for individuals. We know where we're going to the repeater, and the repeater shows up. However, the repeater's job is to call everybody. So our job is to get to the repeater, and the repeater's job is to get to the group. That's what the call type is all about. There's another call type, all call, wherein you would, if you clicked an all call, you would light up every repeater on your network. And I can't think of any really good reason to do that unless you had a single or a very narrow network and you wanted to have an alert of some kind. You had an earthquake or whatever, and you needed to open everybody's receiver and make a transmission. That happens so rarely that I don't even program them into the radio. So anyway, let's go back to building our talk group, or our situation right here where we are, talk group edit. From the DMR-MARC database, we have found that the talk group and DMR ID for DMR-MARC Worldwide English is 13. And we put that in right here. So we have built a contact. That's kind of great. Let's go back to our channel. Let's light it up again. And now, because we have built DMR-MARC Worldwide English 13 and it's a group call, we're going to double click on that and it will appear right here. The radio ID. What if this says sample, demo, any other thing like that? Why, and there's nothing else from which to check. Well, your radio ID hasn't been set up. We have another one of those things where we have to go to a different place to set up the radio ID. Fortunately, over here on the left-hand side, under Digital, we see Radio ID List. And what we see is there's a load of them, or a load of capability. You can have multiple users with IDs. You can have ham radio on one. You can have your work on others. If you have a DMR system at work. Anyway, in order to program this, you double click it and another pop-up comes up. I'm sure you're getting the trend by now that double clicking on whatever item number causes a pop-up to come up and allows you to input data. If you try and input data directly, you won't be able to. Anyway, the radio ID is input and David's name and call sign are input on these two lines, and we have then given the radio an ID. So, okay, once again, and let's go back to our channel and take another look, see what's driving the bus here. Oh, that color code I mentioned. Let me reinforce that a little bit. Color code is the DMR analog to PL and used for the same reason. If there are a number of repeaters possible and you could possibly access one and not another, or duplicate access, you could light up two repeaters at the same time, then repeater owners used PL or for analog, and for DMR we use color code. This particular repeater uses color code 10, and you get that from the repeater database, the repeater guide, whichever. Anyway, that's where it would live. If they define a DMR repeater, they're going to tell you the color code. Okay, let's go on to the slot. Now we have a choice on the slot. Remember, we had the time slot choice of 1 or 2. Well, that would not necessarily appear on the repeater guide, although it could. It appears in the DMR-MARC database, channel database, and it would appear under Worldwide English. So the Worldwide English, the typical, the convention defined by that worldwide database would be slot 1 for DMR-MARC Worldwide English. And that is why we selected slot 1. We come now to receive group list. And let me tell you about receive groups. Because you can use multiple talk groups on a given time slot, you might want to input all of the groups, talk groups that could be used on a given time slot, make them into a receive group list, because even though there are multiple, even though there's a couple of time slots, still only one talk group can be active on a time slot at a time. So we would build that list of talk groups that could be active and put them in a receive group list. Well, that's great, but sometimes there are so many talk groups that could be engaged that list would be huge, or you might miss one. One feature that the 868 has, and even my 380s have, is when the talk group that you're on is active, the little green light comes on. And instead of hearing somebody's traffic that's going on, you know that traffic exists because the little green light is on. In that case, green does not mean go. Well, because of that, because the LGL is there, I can not build a receive group list since you are immediately on your own receive group and you can hear what you have programmed, in this case worldwide English. We really don't need that as long as we pay attention to the little green LED and don't transmit over the top of other people. Okay. Next one is digital encryption. It gets easier from here, guys. Digital encryption is off. And the reason it's off is because I'm building this in the United States, and digital encryption in the United States is not allowed. So there you go. It's a worldwide plug that we're building right here, and the United States is definitely part of worldwide. So digital encryption is off. Now in Canada, you could turn digital encryption on if you had a local contact that wasn't going off the borders of Canada, because digital encryption is not particularly prohibited there on the amateur bands. Well, we've done a pretty good job. We've gone through each of the elements of building a channel on a code plug, and I bet you think we're done. Not quite. We're almost done. We're going to say okay to this, and now we have a channel that we have built. Here's the channel that we have built right here. Number 69 is the channel we have built. But if we went over, blew this into the radio, and attempted to find DMR-MARC Worldwide English, we wouldn't find it. And you know why? It wouldn't appear in a zone. We don't have a zone. Okay, let's go over to the zones. Take a look at it. Once again, we go over to the number of the zone, double click on that puppy, and it shows up for us. And we see here that worldwide K1RK Worldwide English has already been entered. What we did was we highlight the channel, the available channel that we built, and we put it in the home zone. Now, there isn't a home zone there. If we, let me cancel this a moment. If we opened one of these that didn't have wasn't a zone yet, we were going to program it, we would have to figure out a name to call it. Now, for what we're doing right now, we could call it the K1RK repeater zone. Repeater. We could call it the K1RK repeater zone, and then go down and find worldwide. You know, I have too many channels in here to make this easy to do, but I think you get it right now. If you don't have a zone, you have to make it. You have to make one. And I'm just going to blank that out right now because I'm being lazy. Anyway, you blank that out, but I like using the home zone for what I do normally. I maybe have 10 or 12 channels that I frequent normally, and there's a lot of channels available in northern Colorado, so I don't use a lot of them. I have a lot, as you could probably see. There's 250 odd channels in this particular code plug. It's part of the demo code plug that I use as a base for many of the products that go out the door here at ArtCraft Electronics. Another shameless plug. Anyway, so that's zones. And until you put the channel we just built into a zone, it's not going to exist and it's not going to be programmed. Using it the other way around, when you program your channel that you've just built into the home channel, you can go into your radio, select the zone that you've built or the zone in which you have placed the channel that you have built, and you will be able to find it on your radio after we program the radio and use it. And it'll... we're getting audio bombed by DMR. We have Aaron there. I'm going to turn that off for the moment. I'll chat with Aaron later. Anyway, I want to talk for another moment. This doesn't have directly to do with programming a channel, but I think it's good to know. The digital contact list. Let's just start out with, because there's over 91,000 DMR users right now, and there's probably around 100,000 at this point in time. It was just 91,000 the last time I looked. DMR is just taking off. Anyway, that being said, let's look at a digital contact. And as you can see under call type here, they're all private call. Let's light up here one of my VE friends, VA3AMO Rolando. Because it's an individual, it's going to be private call, and here is his DMR ID. That's all it would take for us to do that manually. And we would have to say, where would I get that? You'd get that from the DMR database data dump. However, there's ways to import the entire database, so you don't have to input these one at a time. I bet you that makes you happy. You don't have to input 91,000 plus contacts one at a time. So there you go. Now let me see. Let me go through here and see if there's anything else that I have missed. I did put together a little outline, and I want to make sure I hit all of the items in question. All call, yada yada. First code plug. Okay, we have built a channel. We have put it in a zone, and I think we've reviewed the individual elements and what drives those elements. Individual elements of a channel and what drives those elements. If there's any questions, go ahead and respond to this video and let me know what those questions are. The object of this video was to not only show how to make a channel on a DMR radio, on the 868 radio, but to have a little bit of background and understanding of why we're making those channel element selections. So that's what was going on. And now the obligatory plug for ArtCraft Electronics. We sell the AnyTone 868 radio, and there is a package that we sell that has about an hour of programming involved, and we took just about an hour to get this done, so you understand about how long it takes to do a channel and so on. But we can put together a small code plug for you. We'll badger you for the right information and try and get things working, but the thing we won't do is we won't have the ability to test that code plug. So we'll rely very heavily upon your data that you provide us. Of course, we will use the repeater guide and a couple of other sources to make sure that we have some of the information that we need to do the job. Anyway, the AnyTone AT D868UV, excuse me, value-added package includes the radio and all the accessories that come with the radio. It includes a antenna upgrade, which is the Nagoya NA701. Good antenna. I like it. It includes a DVD with a lot of good information. Even includes the manual. Of course, you get a hard copy of the manual too, but it includes a lot of good information on programming. And going forward from here, I'll even include a transcript of this particular video. So there's a lot. There's a gold mine of data there, and the customer programming software and firmware programming software. Lots of good stuff, etc., etc., etc. What was the last thing? Oh yeah, my 1 hour of programming time, which I think is most valuable stuff of all, but you know, that's just me. Of course I would. At any rate, we also offer programming services. If you tell me you want to have the entire repeater database installed in your radio, why, we can certainly do that. But that's not our primary focus, and it's going to cost you a little bit, so I probably wouldn't. I don't encourage that because it consumes more time than I care to charge people. So there we go. I don't want to end this on a negative note, but I think I'm going to just say that the AnyTone AT D868UV value-added package is a wonderful deal, and if I were you, I'd go get one even if I had another. So they're good radios. We use the best radio we can find at any given time. There are other dual band radios, and all of them have some issues in one area or another, and the 868 is in that list too. It has a couple of issues here and there. Nothing serious enough to for me to say, gee, I don't want to handle this, because the support, the after-sale support, would be too extreme. Not that I have a problem chatting with folks and helping them resolve issues, just that if there's a bunch of them, I can't do my job very well, other than customer support. And customer support's important to us here at ArtCraft Electronics. Okay, enough of the plug, enough of the commercial. It's been fun. Until next time, happy hamming, and go ahead and find us on www.artcraftelectronics.com. And ArtCraft Electronics was all one word. Take care now.